Good afternoon and welcome to today's Construction Manager Roundtable discussion, where we're going to be looking at the issues of sustainability and circularity in construction. I'm Neil Gerard and I'm Associate Editor of Construction Manager magazine, and I'll be chairing today's discussion, which is timely as we're just a couple of weeks away from the world's leaders congregating in Glasgow for the UN Conference on Climate Change, COP26. I think it goes without saying that sustainability is a key issue to which the construction industry is devoting plenty of time and energy. The construction, operation and maintenance of the built environment reportedly accounts for 45% of total UK carbon emissions. And efforts in the sector are really ramping up to reduce that as the UK strives to hit its net zero targets by 2050. So I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by four prominent panelists today to discuss what the industry is doing and what more action can be taken to reduce the sector's emissions. And they are Russell Down, Graham Edgell, Rainer Ringenberg and Geraint Rowland. And before we go any further, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce yourselves briefly and tell us a bit more about your respective roles. So Graham, perhaps we could start with you.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm the Group Sustainability and Procurement Director for Tier 1 contractor Morgan Sindall. I've been in the role for a long time now, so I offer perhaps a more defined objective from a Tier 1. In sustainability, it was a bolt-on to the construction trade. It is now business as usual. And the only way, and the reason why I'm on the call really, is the fact that we need to collaborate. For us to succeed, we need to work together. So the whole circularity and the environmental agenda needs to be joined up, and we can set an example to other sectors, because one thing about construction is it's good at finding effective solutions. Just what we need to do is to effectively collaborate.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Rainer?
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Rainer Ringenberg. As you said, I'm the region head of Northern Europe and GM of GB for the Hilti group. Actually, I have been in the company for about 16 years in various functions in different countries. Worked in Europe, in Asia and Latin America, on the production side and logistics side and operations, and also later then on sales and marketing areas. In my last position, I was a GM in Belgium and Luxembourg, and now here based in Manchester in our head office for Northern Europe. Actually, why I'm in this call, traditionally Hilti had a focus on so-called sustainability topics, like, for example, health and safety of our customers or of our employees. Also on the social side, with our global Hilti Foundation, we are active in this area since actually many years. But we realize now there is also this environmental aspect where we believe we have to take care more in the area where we do business in. And how we can address these topics, we want to shape and take part in the discussion. And we believe, thanks to our footprint globally, and also thanks to the fact that we control from raw material production of our tools to the end customer, more or less a long supply chain or the complete supply chain from our perspective, we have an important role to play. And we want to do that also together with our partners on the supply chain side and on the customer end side as well. And second, obviously also personally, a topic which is very close to my heart, as I believe it's our own responsibility to act now. And I'm convinced that only sustainable approach to business can ensure a long-term success as a company and as a society. So I'm thankful to be part of the discussion.
That's great, thank you, Rainer. Russell?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. So I'm the Chief Executive of Speedy Hire, the UK's leading provider of tools and equipment to the construction sector. I've been in the position for 6.5 years now, and we operate about 200 depots across the UK, where we're principally providing the contractors equipment, but we're also now pushing out into B&Q, where we have 20 of our own depots in B&Q, and we've now signed a permanent agreement with B&Q to push that out further across their network. We employ about 3,500 people in the UK, And it's environmental issues, sustainability are very important to all of those people as well. So it's becoming a big issue for us in terms of the people that we employ, as well as our customers. And we want to be a significant player in that debate, really. So that's really why I'm here today. And environmental issues come up for me really with all of our stakeholders. So whether they be our shareholders, our customers, our employees, our suppliers. And I think as a hire provider, we are in a unique position to influence the debate and to participate and to really shape the future. So for us, we are in the process of setting science-based target initiatives and really driving the business forward. And we've been a player in that for many, many years, participating with suppliers and customers. But really now I think is the time to really push ahead and be the leader in our industry. And that's really why I want to be in the debate today. We've got 2 of our customers on the call and we've also got 1 of our suppliers. So really it's a unique opportunity to push the debate forwards.
Fantastic, thank you, Russell. And Geraint, finally.
Yeah, hi, my name is Geraint Rowland. So I'm the Group Environmental Director in Costain. I've worked for Costain for coming up to 14 years. I've been in the environmental area for about 20 years. So I've worked as a regulator for the Environment Agency. So particularly focused on the waste side of things. So I've seen all the good and bad practice over the years. And I also worked for Jacobs as well as a waste consultant. So particularly related to circular economy. It's been great to see how far we've come. So many companies now focusing on net zero. We launched our own climate change action plan at the end of 2019. And that's really changed the focus massively. And it's I know it's a point we'll be discussing today, but the leadership has certainly from my perspective changed hugely, and that there's much more focus on actually getting that input and changing the industry. I'd agree with Graham that collaboration is key. It's great to see that all the parties here today, where hopefully we can we'll have some healthy discussion and take some actions away to improve that collaboration.
Thank you, Geraint. Okay, well, let's move on to the first of our discussion points today. So first of all, I'd like to get a sense of what your and your company's current approach to circularity in the environment is. And Russell, perhaps I could start with you on that one.
Sure. So as I said before, Speedy is principally in the business of hiring out tools and equipment to both construction companies, but also to consumers in the B2C market. And our impact on the environment is affected by our position in the supply chain as a provider of equipment to customers, but also our carbon footprint as a company on its own. But the equipment that we provide is inherently sustainable through a circular business model, because we are effectively promoting the sharing economy and therefore helping to minimize negative environmental impacts. So for our business, if you look at what we do, we're hiring out equipment. By doing that, we're sharing that equipment around construction companies or consumers. That means there's not so much equipment in the market. It's getting shared around, it improves its efficiency and utilization, thereby reducing wastage in the market. We're also very good at maintaining and repairing that equipment, thus prolonging its life, improving the asset life cycle. And again, that reduces wastage in the system. But really, one of the things I'm sure we'll talk about today is innovation. So, we will develop new technologies with the manufacturers such as Hilti, but we'll do that in conjunction with our customers. So what is it that our customers are demanding? What are the new technologies that are going to help them in the market reduce their carbon footprint? And us sitting in the middle of that supply chain, working with the manufacturers and the customers, can really help to reduce the carbon footprint of a lot of that equipment. And really, finally, in terms of the business model, the reusability of equipment, using spare parts from old equipment and recycling equipment at the end of its life in conjunction with manufacturers also reduces wastage. So all of that really promotes the circular economy. So for us, that's the principal element of our business model. looking at providing equipment to customers. What can we do? There's a big driver at the moment for our customers to reduce their carbon footprint. And ultimately, the UK government has its own targets for carbon reduction that are pretty aggressive. So, we want to play our part in that, in helping our customers to reduce their carbon footprint. But also we have an obligation to reduce our own carbon footprint. The principal element of that is our logistics fleet. So we operate sort of 500 company cars, over 1,000 vans and lorries. So really promoting the use of hybrid vehicles, electric vehicles, using hydrotreated vegetable oil in our fleet. So those are things that we are actively doing at the moment. And indeed, our hire fleet, all of our powered access machines now only go out with hydrotreated vegetable oil in them. And that is an inherently sustainable fuel that reduces carbon output by about 90%. So we've been working very hard to reduce our carbon footprint and to increase the circularity of what we do. But our vision is to be the green icon of the rental industry. And we really want to embed that throughout everything we do and our supply chain. And as I said before, we have some fairly aggressive carbon reduction targets ourselves, and we're working with a consultancy, Carbon Intelligence, to validate those assumptions and get them validated by the Science Based Targets initiative to make sure that what we're actually doing is the right thing for us to do and the right thing for our customers and all of our stakeholders.
That's great. Thank you, Russell. Would any of the other panelists like to join on this question, just to talk about your approach to the environment and to circularity and what you're doing within your company at the moment?
I can jump in if you want.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely in the center for us as well. And Russell's mentioned it also, that it's a joint approach between supplier, customer, and that's what we try to do as well. For us, we look at also from a holistic perspective. So circularity is key for us, and we want to be in our industry, in our area, actually globally #1 when it comes to circularity. And the key point we do there, we believe we can come across with innovations. That's in our DNA. And when it comes to the products which we innovate, we have a close look. How can we do that better? How can we take the raw materials, extraction, how do we process those? How do the product also perform later on? How long is the life of such a product? And at the end also, how can we take back those products from the market to recycle and reuse at the end of the day? And I think a concrete example which we have here, a cornerstone of our offering for also for a tool hire company, is fleet management. We feel the responsibility to take back and recycle our tools. And for that, we have established a full supply chain to return the tools and take them back in a structured way. For example, in 2020, we took back several million tools, batteries, and chargers from our customers, and we can recycle 97% of the material of those tools. And in addition to that, with the repair center network, we can also fill back some spare parts into that.
And Rainer, so that figure of 97%, that's presumably a fairly significant increase on previous years then. How quickly has that risen?
That's really something which we could increase over the past few years only. As I said, on health and safety and sustainability from a more society perspective, we were focusing on a long time, but really on the environmental and circularity aspect was only the last 3-4 years where we started the journey, where we also, as the other colleagues already said, defined clear targets of CO2 emission and so on.
Okay, thank you. It'd be interesting to hear from the contractor side what the approach is. Geraint, would you be able to tell us what you're doing on this side of things?
Yeah, so our approach has changed from the back end, so looking at the waste that's coming out and searching for a place to get rid, divert that from landfill, to the front end, and very much design focused. So we have internal design, but we subcontract a lot of our design. So that's where we've been focusing a lot of our energy over the last couple of years. From we've called it eliminating harm, but it's from health and safety, environmental and perspectives. So we focused a lot on bringing carbon and circularity to our designers. So we're running training courses with those designers, both internally and externally, to try and get them to change the way they are doing things, to get more efficient in their design. And we have a couple of tools that we use to bring in new standards that we're trying to progress. We need to work with our clients to do that. And we've held events with clients to try and challenge them around their standards. And there's a big change because they're asking us to come to them with these challenges, and trying to make the design more efficient to start with, and then looking at the materials that we're using and driving down the carbon within those materials.
Okay, thank you. And Graham, anything to add on this one?
Just a tad, really. I think the built environment is one of the biggest contributors to carbon emissions and the productive waste. I think that nearly every tier one, and I'm in the same place as Geraint, is that we've divided our carbon and our environmental impacts into our own operational carbon. That of our supply chain is number two, but also the embodied carbon in our product and sales at the end. And I think the big point for us is we've realized now that we cannot do it as a one tier one. We need to do it as a critical mass across the industry, which includes the supply chain and our competitors. So I think we're in the same place.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks. Well, we'll come on to talking about the supply chain in a bit, but just to move on. So thanks for your answers on that one. But first, we can now talk about. Can you give some examples of some of the simplest or most effective ways that you've managed to reduce your company's emissions? I'm just interested to hear about some of the measures you might have been taking. So Rainer, perhaps you can start us off on that one.
Thank you for the good question. Actually, we look at our environmental footprint reduction from a global top-down perspective, and at the same time also from a bottom-up approach. Let me start with the first one, top-down. We created a sustainability team directly linked to the CEO, to the group CEO, and we do the same in the regions. And we define areas where we want to be better at. And for example, on the CO2, we want to be neutral by 2023. Obviously, with compensations in an area where we don't control, or it's technically today not possible yet to fully take that out. And we want to be leader, as I said, in the circularity. And at the same time, we follow also a bottom-up approach where we ask people and our team members in the field if they have good ideas. And we came, for example, now with our new Hilti tool bag, which is 100% out of recycled bottles, which is a bottom-up approach. But maybe key one from the top down. A, we want to reduce. B, we want to replace. And C, we want to do the offset. With the top-down approach, key point is, as I said already a bit, the innovation, the tool innovation. And I think that is why Hilti spends a great deal of time and effort in selecting the resources that go into our products in order to minimize the environmental impact. This is the step which is often overlooked, but emission associated from extracting and processing these resources are generally equal to the emission from the energy used later on in the operation. And together with that, obviously, for power tool, long life service effects, for example, the higher margin, as well as also the environmental impact. If you buy a cheap tool, it might only last a year or two, so you end up needing more tools, which is more waste at the end. And the approach we use there is also from different angles. Also, when it goes to the battery platform, yes, you can come up with a new battery tool, but at the end, when the battery itself is as heavy as the tool, so you have 5 kilo battery and 5 kilo for the saw, then it's also not good for our team members, for the ones who are using that. So we need to optimize that as well, and we can only with such tool when we believe we have a solution which is also good for the health of the people. And the biggest part we have, and that's also similar to our colleagues here in the call, is the CO2 emission related to our service model, which we have with many people in the field. And I was leading there a pilot for the group when I was in my previous position in Belgium and Luxembourg, where we looked, can we really transfer all the cars we have to electrical cars? And we conducted that, and we do that now on a global scale, which means we will change 15,000 cars from the field forces to electrical cars. This will not be completely everywhere possible, but in the vast majorities of the areas we will do that. The same is also for our manufacturing area, so our plants. We reduce their the energy consumption tremendously by going more into how can we reuse the heat which is generated by the production and so on. There are various examples where I think we can go deeper later on as well.
Okay, great, thank you. So some big shifts there. So and vehicles again being a key one by the sound of it. Any other examples of things that you've done, effective ways that you've managed to reduce emissions that anyone else would like to share?
Well, what we tried to do is to engage also bottom up. And so we've got 6,500 staff. Each one of them is making a carbon pledge responsible to the way they work, which also would affect the companies that we engage with. So how they engage with them, what they do on a daily job. So our operational carbon, we've already reduced by over 68% since we started. But we know that we're now in the hard miles where we need to do it together. So it's engaging with people so that everybody has a joint understanding of how to do it. And so alternative fuels, fleet, renewable energy, they're the easier targets. We've now moved on to a harder target, which is the life cycle carbon, the carbon that's embodied.
Okay, thanks, Graham.
Yeah, I think for us, as I said before, it's kind of twofold. So it's the equipment that we bring into the fleet through our suppliers and really looking at innovations in those areas. So whether it's battery powered equipment, hybrid powered equipment, solar, or alternatively hydrogen even. And really there's an education process there with our customers that ultimately the piece of equipment might not be the cheapest to hire up front, but the fuel usage and the carbon output from that particular product in the longer term, it will be cheaper to run, and also there's a significant environmental benefit from it. So that's really where we just recruited an ESG director, and she's working closely with our major customers to work with them to push the benefits of some of this alternative equipment. But as we've touched on a few times, our own carbon footprint really revolves around logistics. So it is the vehicles that we run. All our company car list is now electric or hybrid vehicles. So within a few years that will be converted. And we already have electric vans and electric lorries now within the fleet. It's really just around how fast technology moves in terms of the range and the payload that those vehicles can operate with. But we want to be at the forefront of that. And I believe that we already are. On Graham's point, culture is the key thing. So getting our employees to focus on it, getting them trained, and I think we'll probably talk about that a bit later. But we have a number of big depots where the depot needs to be heated, but there are lorry movements in and out of the depot all day long. So leaving the heating on and opening the door is not a very environmentally friendly way of operating. So there's a massive cultural piece that we need to deal with as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've got a couple I could share with you. One very simple one was to look at the idling in our plant. Mm-hmm. We found that the idling levels were exceedingly high in our plant, which obviously is costly, firstly. So you can put a nice pound sign against it, which helps get the attention of people, but you can also, it's a very significant bit of our carbon. So we set a target across all of our projects to set a baseline for idling and a reduction target, which has been quite successful. So quite easily they were knocking off 10-15% idling at least. But yeah, there are behavioural reasons. There are reasons for idling, but we've knocked a percentage off there, which has been relatively simple. It's just at the end of the day, it was just waste off someone's bottom line. And the other one, which goes back to design, was work we'd done on a water treatment works. It was an upgrade to meet new consent limits, where the solution was to do a lot of new civil work, a lot of demolition, and working with the client, we came up with a new technology, or existing technology proven elsewhere, but it was one of the first times that it had been used in the UK, and we retrofitted it into the existing civils work that was there. So we vastly reduced the amount of carbon to get the same result at the end. So it was a great sort of PAS 2080 story. We didn't get to build nothing, but we built a lot less, and so the operational carbon was also less from operating this bit of kit. So it was a big win.
Okay, thanks, Geraint. Well, you've touched on behaviours there, and that sort of brings me neatly on to my next question, really, which was obviously, you can have these targets and the technology, but you need to bring people along with you. So I'd like to find out a little bit more about what you're doing on the training side of things within your respective organisations, whether it's your employees or the customers that you work with, to meet this sustainability challenge. So, Geraint, I don't know if there's more that you can say on that front.
Yeah, we've rolled out a lot of training over the last really 2-3 years focused on carbon. So we have our own leading carbon and Costain course that we've rolled out to the majority of our leaders now, and we've strengthened our other training courses within SHE so that environment is a stronger element within those. It's a key part of what we're delivering to all our staff. I think, as Graham said, getting those people on board is vital. We have 2 leadership impact days that we do twice a year. The last 3 have been around carbon and natural capital. So we started off by focusing on improving people's awareness, so awareness of their own carbon footprint, and then we've worked slowly through to bring it into their job. And our last impact day was basically the whole company stops. All of our leaders from the business that are based centrally go out to our projects, and our last one was focused on particular groups and functions. So we focused on procurement, design, engineering and commercial teams, so that they understood how they fitted into this picture and what they needed to do to change. It's all very well me or people in my team trying to influence and shouting, but we need to change the way those people are working and are trying to drive change. It's not always easy if the client is not quite aligned, but that's very, very quickly changing. And so we need to make sure our people are pushing forward and leading. We also do work with our supply chain, so we run a supply chain academy and work very closely with the supply chain sustainability school. So we want our supply chain to have an understanding and to be coming to us with solutions and offering us solutions as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else care to add anything on the training side of things? Any initiatives that you've taken or approaches that you find are working well?
Well, to build on Geraint's comment about we're founder partners of the Supply Chain Sustainability School. We've been part of the team that's driven learning pathways. And so instead of just going on and finding a huge realm of content, the school now can tailor a learning pathway to individuals and companies. And so by taking a simple assessment, instead of having a Google search and struggle with a myriad of answers, it can be tailored to suit. And I'm pleased to say that Speedy are also part of the school as well as Costain, so it really works.
Yeah, and I would just echo that, Graham. I mean, our Chief Operating Officer sits on the board of the Supply Chain Sustainability School with Graham, and we found it extremely useful with training, with changing the culture of our people. So I would definitely support everything that's being done there. Obviously, we've got our own head of ESG, we've got learning and development, but all of that is feeding in and using the material generated by the Supply Chain Sustainability School really to change the culture within the organisation and make sure we've got 3,500 advocates of reducing our carbon footprint, not just me or our ESG director. So, and that's the key to getting this to work. And that's an ongoing process. I'm pleased to say that, you know, the majority of our people are very bought into this, and you know, we're getting there quite quickly. So we've set some fairly aggressive targets, and at the moment we're on track to hit all of those.
Maybe I can add on this one. It's exactly the same picture also for us in Hilti. the good thing is it's not so difficult to win the team members to go in this direction. Actually, they think it's the right thing to do, and they also are engaged in doing that. What helps us, maybe an additional aspect, is on the internal journey that we are trying to support our customers on this sustainability journey. As you also said, Russell, that you have ambassadors, or actually every team member is an ambassador. With that, many of our employees are trained to seek for solutions in the R&D, and finally also to train in the field the aspects of sustainability on our products, services, and software which we innovated before, because normally the innovations are not speaking themselves. We have to train it and we have to show it, and so we can also use that as a good training internally when we go further. And maybe one additional aspect, it's not just about environment, it's also with the health and safety factor, which plays there a role. And there we have obviously some cool features which make our team members also excited about. The exoskeleton, for example, a new thing which comes to the market where we support the field workforce for example, in working overhead, and these are examples which are going beyond just the environmental aspect, and they help us also to shape and to trigger this holistic approach.
Okay, thank you, Rainer. We've talked a bit about supply chains, but I'd just like to expand on that a bit further. And I'm interested to know if you select your supply chain partners based on their environmental performance at all. So Graham, if I could come to you on that one first, perhaps.
Historically, the supply chain at Morgan Sindall is worth over £3 billion sterling. And we actually touch every sector from FM right through to heavy civil engineering, so including house building and various different parts of the civil engineering sector. And so historically, like every other tier one, we've just used the PQQ process, which is a pre-qualification, which is reactive and based upon legislative compliance and notices. And we up until the last 2 years, that was where we were. However, by clients and public money judging us more and more on qualitative measures around sustainability, we have started to introduce them the same way. And that is a myriad of things, really. So it starts off, and my colleagues on the call have talked about innovation and everything else. Well, what we've tried to do now is that on a project by project basis is open the door to measurable and proven innovation, so that we can actually share the best practice, not just with ourselves, but with the client, and also then to pass on to the supply chain things that we've learned on other jobs. So how do we do that? Well, we've now encouraging all of our supply chain to build up a library of case studies that we can actually get third-party accredited, so that we're happy to share with other bodies and our peers and joint venture partners. So are we doing it enough? Probably not, because it's still an imprecise science in a very competitive sector. So to make it work, we have set measures now which don't have to be all about the bottom right-hand corner of the price. It can be time, it can be social, it can be environmental, or it even can be a longer-term legacy that the community can benefit from. It's still something that the industry is grappling with, but we're making more and more progress. So do we select based purely on the environmental things? No, but we're getting far better at it.
Very interesting. Thanks, Graham. Any of our other panelists care to add anything on the supply chain front?
I can talk quickly about, I mean, I agree with Graham exactly. You know, we're in a similar space where we are starting. We've got some really good examples within larger infrastructure projects like Crossrail HS2, and it's a matter of trying to spread that best practice where we are selecting and heat mapping packages. So, you're still trying to keep that process efficient. It's important, and it's drilled into me, you know, it needs to be an efficient process. So it's targeting those areas where you've got most opportunity on carbon particularly, or there's the most environmental risk. So that's where you're potentially scoring, and as a heavier weighting on environment and carbon. So that's what we're starting to introduce much more widely to larger packages, so that we are asking our supply chain in the same way that we are being asked on those projects, you know, how are we reducing our carbon footprint? So yeah, it's an area that we're on with, but yeah, as an industry, I think we probably need to get better and start rewarding those companies, smaller companies that are making the most progress.
Okay, so we've been talking about supply chains, obviously, and whether or not you select your supply chain partner based on their environmental performance. So, Russell, interested to hear what you have to say on this one.
Yeah, so from our perspective, I think what we're seeing now is more of our customers using environmental criteria, shall we say, to select their suppliers. I don't think, as Graham said, it's the be all and the end all, but it's definitely a criteria that the end customer is using more and more. So we're seeing it as a criteria that people are looking at, and it's important, therefore, that we do introduce the innovative equipment, whether that's battery powered, hybrid powered, solar powered, hydrogen powered, and that does have an impact on, you know, how customers select us, because ultimately it reduces the end cost of the project, or can do, and certainly will reduce the environmental impact of the project. And that's something really that we're pushing down to our suppliers as well. So we've talked a few times about how we work with our supply chain on bringing innovation through the supply chain to our customers. And very much we are working with them, and the environmental performance is very much a factor. I think, again, as Graham said, it's not the be all and end all. Price is important, and it has to be, because we're all in this for a reason. But at the end of the day, environmental issues are more and more important. And for all of our stakeholders, you know, our shareholders are very, very focused on environmental issues now. And it's something that we all need to take into account in everything that we do.
Okay, thanks, Russell. Just staying on supply chains, and I think, Graham, you've already spoken a bit about this in your response on this, but I'm just interested to know if anything more about work you're doing to inform or educate or encourage supply chain partners to improve their performance.
Yeah, so I think on all fronts, really. We've localized the supply chains now as best we can, so that we can be more targeted, and it improves communication. And a series of things like the supply chain school, individual sector-driven lunch and learns, where it's an open forum where we've got the value chain, everybody on the call. So the clients on the call, the manufacturers on the call, and maybe the hire business as well. So it's not easy just to do it in one way. So we've started to drive this initiative to improve the collaboration. We've just had a major collaborative event for all of our supply chain, which I'm pleased to say that Hilti and Speedy were participating in the last month, where it wasn't all about the tier one, it was all about collaboration, working together, and whether it be the smallest SME, enabling us to learn from him. So I think the 360-degree approach that most industries have been doing for a long time is no longer lip service in construction. It's going around, so the circularity of the information is getting better and better. So that's really where we are.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any other points to add on the issue of supply chains?
Maybe from my side, a short point. Actually, we see this also. It's from our customers and partner, there is more transparency expected from us. So we also go into this direction, and we work together with our customers, but also with our suppliers in this relationship to have a more systematic approach on finding the right measures and the right activities to reduce at the end the waste. And we build it up actually a 5-step approach. In the first step, we focus on creating a high degree of transparency. with respect to all the parties, and we look into certificates, we look in the sourcing, where does it come from, and we also connect it to our SAP Ariba system, and there we have, for example, today 800 suppliers already on the same platform, which makes about 80% of our total purchasing volume. And with that, we gain the transparency, and so with that, we can build on it. In a second step, we want to ensure that the sustainability assessment and the key figures of our suppliers in all the processes are increasing. For this purpose, we do this assessment ourselves, but also in combination with, for example, external companies like EcoVadis, and we put these measures then also into SAP Ariba. And we go further step by step. We have a long plan to go, but this is where we are at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I think that covers most of the questions that I was hoping to ask in today's discussion. But perhaps before we draw to a close, I could ask any of you for your final thoughts on these issues of sustainability and circularity, or any messages that you'd like to share with the wider market. Any points anyone would like to make before we conclude?
Well, from a Morgan Sindall point of view, I think what I'd like to say is it's actually exciting times, because from almost a standing start, the industry is responding in a massive way. You know, the fact that we've got 2 tier 1s on the call today, we've got a manufacturer that is setting examples, and an enabler like Speedy actually delivering them right to the coalface. So for us, it's exciting times. We've got a long, long way to go, but if we can continue to share, collaborate, but most of all, target and measure the improvements, I think we can set an example to other sectors.
Thanks,
I
Graham.
think I would just like to echo that. I mean, from my point of view, we've been working on this for a long time, but the momentum now seems to have sort of really re-emerged and over the course of the last couple of years. So from my perspective, you know, we're a public company. The shareholders are very much pushing this agenda. Equally, our customers, their end customers, the employees, and our suppliers as well. So working with everyone to push this forward is, you know, you're pushing against an open door, and I think that really is exciting. For us, setting the targets has been a little bit of a challenge, trying to get the information, particularly on scope 3, where you are pushing back into the supply chain. But once we have that information, you can see quite readily where the improvements can come from, whether it is our own logistics fleet, whether it's our supply chain, whether it's our people. So exciting that we can see what we can do and how we can all make a difference for all of our stakeholders and improve both our own businesses and the wider world at the same time. So yeah, really looking forward to taking the debate forwards.
Thanks, Russell.
From my side, I think the best sign is that we are all together in a call and speak about that for a good hour. That shows we have the different elements, we have the right people on the table to discuss these topics, and with that, I'm sure we will also move it forward. And the second point is, we said it in the intro, collaboration is key. Nobody can achieve that alone. Everybody can contribute its part, but when we make it together and we involve suppliers, customers in the innovation process, in the full supply chain process, then we can win double. And I think that's what we are aiming for, and that's what we all here in the discussion want to contribute to. So I hope it also continues after our discussion here.
Yeah, and from me, just yeah, I'd agree with what Graham said about exciting times. I've been in this role a long time, and it's now feels like we're making huge progress and moving beyond, you know, corporate, to a certain extent, greenwashing, getting to the real issues like scope 3 emissions, and people are facing up that they are tough things to drive down to zero carbon, but we are making progress. We're getting far more interest from our clients, which we need that support from our clients. And as everyone said multiple times, we probably need to work together even more closely. So there is good collaboration going on. On supply chain, we have much of the same supply chain, so we can create efficiencies and perhaps help them to move more quickly working together. So yeah, that's my final thought. Yeah, it's collaboration all the way. Let's get there.
Excellent, thank you. Well, some really interesting and useful points have come out today on a very important and timely subject. So thanks very much again to all 4 of our panelists, Russell Down, Graham Edgell, Rainer Ringenberg and Geraint Rowland. Thank you also to Hilti and Speedy Hire for supporting today's session. Thanks very much.